Hey, good people, how you doing? David Taub here, co-creator of NextLevelGuitar.com. We're knee-deep in our blues rock soloing, playing over a jam track. This is a continuing series of lessons where we're working on improvisational skills, checking out jam tracks and seeing what chords work and certain relationships between chords and scales and modes and arpeggios, and throwing it all into the soup, and I hope you're enjoying it. And today we're looking at Dorian. We're looking at some Dorian licks and minor pentatonic licks. In the first lesson, I went over the progression and over how to pick it apart and to learn what scales to use over it. And now we're going to get into the actual licks that we're going to be playing. Tune into the first lesson as I broke down and taught you the scale patterns. And we went over the theory aspect of it. And now we're going to get into more of the practicality, so let's get right to it. Oh, and if you want to see a lot of these scales drawn out, click on that link below. I'll send you a free video lesson and a free ebook where I have a lot of the scales drawn out and a lot of other killer written lessons and chord charts. So check that out. Just click on that link, follow the screens. I'll send you a free video lesson, free ebook from Next Level Guitar. All right, so I'm assuming, we all know what happens when we do that, right? I'm assuming that you watched the previous lesson and you got a lot of the scale shapes that we're using. And let's focus on this lesson on Dorian. And we're playing in the key of E minor, and we're using our E Dorian a mode over all the chords. We're soloing over what relates to all. And E Dorian, as we determined in the first lesson, is the same because it's the second mode in any major scale, and the second note of a D major scale is E. So we are going to be playing all our D major scales, but we're focusing on the E notes. So anywhere that you know a major scale, a D major scale, play it over this jam, but don't focus on D because it'll sound too major, and this is a rock vibe. We want that minor, that dark tonality in the key of E. So focus on those E notes. Remember, anytime you're playing a major scale, and you're starting and emphasizing any other note other than the root note, you're playing in the modes. That's all the modes are. If anyone has explained it to you and it's really abstract and complicated, it's not. The modes of the major scale are just variations of the major scale. That's it. It's easy. Piece of cake. All right. So if we take that one shape that I showed you up here, let's turn the delay off. Make it a little bit easier for you, right? That's better. Okay. So if we take that one E Dorian I showed you up here, right? That is lick heaven because you have the same basic finger pattern on the two sets of adjacent strings. You're using your first, third, and fourth finger on the high E and the B, and you're using your first, second, and fourth on the D and the G, right? So check this out. So what you could do, first of all, some of those bends I was doing in the beginning where I was hitting that low E string and then bending a note, that's a great bend. I'm bending a half step from that 14th up to the 15th fret. See, I'm bending up to that G note from that F sharp. So that's a great bend. And then you can also bend up to the A from the 15th to the 17th fret. Another great bend in that scale is that 15th fret on the B string up a whole step, bending that D to the E. That's a killer one because we're bending to the root, E. Make sure you hit your target note when you're bending. And that's a great bend too because remember we have our third finger right there on the 14th fret on the B string, so we could bend that C sharp up to the D. So what I do a lot is I'll bend the 15th fret up a whole step and then quickly bend the 14th fret up to that 15th fret so you get stuff like, and that sounds really cool. And you could do a bend and pull off from the 14th to the 12th fret on that B string. You could do that same bend, 14, pull off to the 12 on the high E string. One after another. You can do the same thing on the G string too because you're bending to the blue note, 14 to 12 fret. See, we're bending that blue note. And on E. So these are all cool things you could do in Dorian. The other thing I was doing was one first finger bends half steps. Half step bends are great. They're very melodic and they sound great over these bluesy, power ballady, power chordy type thingies, right? So I have on the G string, I have 11, 12, and 14th frets, right? Notice first finger, bend that 11th to the 12th fret, that F sharp to the G. Remember, we are in E Dorian. 14, 12, 11, bend. Or I go 14, 12, 11, 12, 11, bend. Then you can resolve it to the 14th fret, that D note on the D string. You could do that same type thing because we have the same fingering on the D string. So that's why having these adjacent fingerings the same on adjacent strings are so cool. That's a cool lick too. I'm playing the hammer and pull off on the G string, 11th to 12th fret. And then with the pinky, get up to that D string on the root note on that 14th fret. Take some practice to get it fast. You can do that same exact lick, 11 to 12, hammer to pull, and then pinky on the 14th fret of the A string. Ran them both one into another, okay? These all are in the key. We're playing in E minor, we're thinking E Dorian, we're thinking D major, right? So work on those. Here's some other ones too. Remember this shape, right? And then that E note. So like I played it, I think during one of the jams I played this. That actually is a D major 7th arpeggio, but I kind of focused on the E notes. Sandwich it on E notes. That looks like this. It sounds cool when you go up to that and land on that E Dorian, right? D major. We had this scale shape, D major, E Dorian. So you could do those same kind of hammer and pulls. And I mean, you could end that on that E. Ending it on E. Okay, so you have all these cool, that's kind of cool. Same kind of lick idea, using the scale on the E string, high E string, to the B. And then kind of doing a similar thing on the B string, hammer pull. There's our root note on the G. Remember you could just blast right down with hammer-ons and it sounds cool. I'm going from the top part of that scale on the G string. That's a 6, 7, 9, 7, 8, 10, 7, 9, 10 on the high string. Sounds even better when you bring it to the E note, right? So cool things we're doing here in E Dorian, which gives us that extra note from the blues scale, 2 extra notes from minor pentatonic, and it has that real sophisticated sound, and it sounds good in the rock kind of setting, right? Let me play a lot of these licks over the track. We'll start with our E Dorian up here at the 12th fret. There's a 15th fret bend into the 14th fret, half step bend. Pretty cool. See how I end on that E note? There's that high E string. 14th fret to the 15th fret whole step. Right, let's try that hammer and pull. Here's that other shape. Right, that's a hammer and pull lick I showed you, ending on that E note on that 9th fret. Find a couple cool notes that work. E and F sharp on the B string. Mix it with minor pentatonic. Low E string with a big bend. Let it soar. That's that B string at the 10th fret. Then that B string at the 15th fret. High E string, 15th fret. High E string, 14th fret. Right down to Dorian. Always mix in some minor pentatonic, always very rock and roll. There's the blues scale. There's more of those hammer and pulls on the Dorian. So there's a bunch of stuff that will work over the jam, and that's only using E Dorian. You know, we could still use E minor pentatonic and blues and E Aeolian because of those power chords. It's very wide open. Remember, the less notes, the less chords that you're playing, the less notes in the chords, like power chords only fifth chord, root and fifth, 2 notes, the more wide open things you could play over the whole progression, because we're soloing over what relates to all, not treating each chord as a separate event. So try some of these licks just as a framework, you know, as a skeleton of a rough outline, you know, and build some of your own based on these building blocks, these scales, these modes, these arpeggios, and come up with your own and practice them over the jam track. I'll put the track at the end of this lesson so you can sharpen your soloing and improvisational skills to a sharp edge. I'm David Taub, co-creator of nextlevelguitar.com. Be sure to go to the website. There's over 1,150 video lessons, jam tracks, written lessons. It's absolutely packed, all genres of music, beginner, intermediate, advanced. There's a 3-day free pass on the homepage, so be sure and check that out. Give the site a good test drive. You might like it, right? Also, subscribe to our YouTube videos by clicking on that subscribe button, and we'll let you know we got more stuff coming out. And don't forget to click on that link below if you want the free video lesson and free ebook, and just click on the link, follow the screens. We'll send it to you for free from Next Level Guitar. Keep putting that guitar in your hand every day. I can't emphasize that enough. Keep practicing over jam tracks. When you're noodling around, always know what key you're playing in, right? That'll really help you. Keep playing over those backing tracks. That's so important. And keep rocking on. And I'll see you next time. Lots more to come. Maybe we'll do some, you know, check out some of the other lessons on this series for, we'll do licks in Aeolian mode using, you know, E Aeolian, G major, using minor pentatonic and blues, tons of stuff. So be sure to check them out too. And see you next time. Rock on.